As many of you know, my future plans include becoming an officer in the United States military. So I want to begin my stage with a story from an experience I had at a camp at the United States Naval Academy known as Summer Seminar. This camp is basically a one-week introduction to life as a lowly midshipman at Navy, where we attended classes, worked out, and were warmly known as candidate. The camp was run by midshipmen who were entering their sophomore year at the academy, with each in charge of a squad, platoon, or company. This camp was also my first-hand experience with military lifestyle. I was at the Naval Academy with about 200 other prospective students at a summer seminar. We were lined up for a pretend inspection with midshipmen pacing up and down the line like they would in any movie about the military. That night at the Naval Academy, there was a lot of yelling, a lot of people being dropped for push-ups, and a lot of candidates who nervously responded to the questions with the stupidest answers you could possibly think of. As I stood straight up with my feet against the wall and my eyes looking straight ahead, the only thing that I could think of was how much I didn't want one of the midshipmen to step in front of my line of sight. It didn't take long before the candidate next to me was confronted by a very loud, intimidating midshipman. He was about 6 feet tall with a sharp buzz cut and easily over 200 pounds of seemingly pure muscle. Needless to say, I was incredibly uncomfortable, but also extremely thankful that it was not me he was standing in front of. Shady Side Academy Middle School dress code has nothing on the standards that midshipmen held us to in regards to how we looked. Shirts were always tucked in, hats were immediately put on when we stepped outside, but were taken off at the first step indoors. But most importantly, our socks were motivated. Motivated socks? It is definitely a valid question to ask what it meant to have motivated socks. It simply meant that your socks had to be pulled up all the way. Well, on this night, the candidate next to me made a huge mistake. His one sock was incredibly motivated, but his other sock, unfortunately, was not even close to being adequately motivated. It was, in fact, an apathetic sock, or maybe even a discouraged sock, or an entitled sock. I'm not sure exactly what was happening with that sock, but it was clearly unmotivated. In most worlds, no one would notice the attitude of this sock, but at the Naval Academy, in this world, it was an absolute embarrassment. "Are you kidding me, candidate?" the midshipman yelled into his face, and by in his face, I mean close enough to smell what he ate for dinner while simultaneously being spit on. Not only have you embarrassed yourself by looking like shit, but you've managed to embarrass your entire squad. After being dropped for some push-ups, the poor kid stood up sweating, but a little proud of himself, thinking that he had endured his punishment. He was wrong. Without missing a beat, the midshipman continued. "Now your squad has to help you to motivate your sock." The candidate was definitely semi-confused. Honestly, we were all semi-confused, or maybe even all of the way confused. The candidate leaned down and began to pull up his sock, obviously skeptical, and he didn't get far. The mid then resumed his yelling as he explained that he did not mean physically motivate his sock, but to verbally motivate his sock. Then, I kid you not, I spent the next 5 minutes listening to this kid and his entire squad of 5 or 6 people in the middle of the hallway, yelling motivational quotes at his sock in hopes that it would become motivated. "Come on, sock, you got this, don't give up. You're a stronger sock than you even know," they yelled. It wasn't long before I couldn't hold in my laughter and burst out laughing. It also didn't take long before the next midshipman arrived in front of me, ready to verbally destroy me. Although I laugh every time I think about that story, judging by the number of times I have told it, it obviously has had more of an impact on me than just making me laugh. It helped me define how I want to live my life, and is the single point that I want to share with you today. No matter who you are, regardless of race, gender, socioeconomic standing, or age, no matter where in this world you happen to be born or find yourself, self-motivation and inspiring others through service are qualities that you can obtain. Here's my question to all of you. How do you motivate your socks, and how do you help others to motivate their socks? It took me going out into the world of the military to fully understand that I live in a bubble. A huge bubble. Not everyone wears polos every day and drives BMWs. And frankly, I'm tired of hearing it, so I'm just going to say it now. Not everyone goes to a nationally recognized college. In fact, tons of people don't even go to college. And despite what I myself grew up assuming, it's not because they're dumb or lazy. College is very expensive, and in many families, feeding their family is more important than saving for a college education. I don't know that I forgot how blessed I am as much as I never really knew. So to add to the sock story, last summer I attended a second camp called Keystone Girls State, where about 100 high school females came together and we ran our own government or state for a week. The females were so incredibly intelligent, maybe not Ivy League smart, but pretty darn close. There, however, the question was not, where do you want to go for college, but instead, what do you want to do with your future? This was a new question for me that changed how I looked at my own motivated socks in the future. The answers to the questions were very diverse. Some were going to college, some working on a family business, or joining the military. There were plenty of girls that were 17 and 18 years old that were enlisting in the Marine Corps and Army after graduation, just to have the opportunity to get financial aid and continue their education. Whether it was how they were raised or something that they learned through their hardships, those girls knew how to motivate their own socks and the socks of everyone around them by forming their own path to success. I believe that most of us here at SSA have grown up with our socks motivated, but not by ourselves. We have become accustomed to people like our parents and our teachers pulling our socks up for us. We have become accustomed to relying on our teachers, reminding us to get that essay in on time instead of planning our schedules to get it done in a timely manner. We rely on our parents to call our coaches, teachers, and administrators when we don't get enough playing time or receive a totally reasonable low grade instead of working harder and confronting the problem ourselves. If we don't read material for a class discussion, someone else carries the weight while we contribute what we found on Spark Notes or asking a friend to fill us in on what happened. Our socks are just drooping around our ankles until someone comes along and pulls them up for us. We have been blessed with a head start in life, in the real world, by being able to attend a school like this. But unless you find the self-motivation to pursue your passion, someone else will, and it sure as hell won't matter where they went to high school. Of course, one of the strongest American values is the right to motivate your socks in any direction that you choose. With that is the option to not motivate your socks at all, but instead to leave your talented, educated, intelligent socks to grow moldy behind the washing machine. We have all seen it happen with previous graduates. There are some extremely motivated socks out there by people who are our age, who are determined to motivate themselves beyond poverty, beyond hardships, and out of emerging nations. Take those girls enlisting in the military to get a college education for an example. Success is not just going to come to you, and those who are able to dig deep and take control are the ones who are going to obtain it. At the same time, your passion and your motivation are limited by how much you are motivated toward being generous. As anyone with familiarity with the military would know, officers do not eat anything at a meal until all lower-ranking soldiers get as much food as they desire. There were plenty of meals where the midshipman or cadet in charge of my squad would leave with a fourth of what I had eaten just because my squad and I would eat like animals. Not one time did they ever complain even a little bit. Leadership, selflessness, and service are all in one category. To me, a good leader knows how to motivate their own socks, but more importantly, knows how to motivate the socks of others. The best leaders put their interests beneath others and are generous without being condescending. I learned this lesson here, the hard way, when I became team captain as a sophomore. My first attempts to motivate had my ego at the center. I was crushing socks right and left until I learned to shut up and listen and find ways to make the lives of my teammates a little easier. If you think about it, the one thing that is most necessary to learn something like self-motivation is good role models. For that reason, we as students here at SSA have zero excuses to have our socks dangling limply around our ankles. Simply put, teachers here are motivated by all of the right things and beyond willing to motivate us when we are struggling to do so. Our art teachers are still artists. Our English teachers are still readers. Every teacher I've met seems to be a reader who is still passionate about his or her field. Teachers like Miss Witt, who although I've never had as a teacher or advisor, called me after losing the Whitfield Championship because she had heard how much it meant to me. And Mrs. Elkins, who is not afraid to say what she believes, yet is caring enough to check in with me at lunch just to make sure that I was doing okay after I seemed a bit flustered the day before. And Miss Irvin, who always has had that incredibly adorable smile and her beautiful use of language when she tells her seemingly endless amount of stories that have clearly come from a life of love, adventure, and family. I could go on and on about how incredible these people are, but each of you already knows. Our teachers are motivated to embody generosity in its finest form, a characteristic of leadership that we often overlook. People always thank our teachers for the work that they do here, but in the end, the best way to thank them is to use what they have taught us by becoming leaders in this world. If their work doesn't inspire you, I suggest that you start wearing flip-flops with no socks at all. So here's a list of things I hope you will tell your socks someday. Curiosity is a great motivator that will teach you things you never expected. Learn something just to know it, not for a grade. Go outside of your comfort zone, get outside of this bubble. Creativity is also a great motivator. Think on your own and stop using Google for your ideas. Initiative. Stop waiting for outside motivation to be provided, and definitely do not rely on it or spend your time waiting for it to show up. Finally, generosity is the single most motivating factor for all of us. For the people who look up to us, for the people we look up to, for how we look at ourselves. Use generosity, doing something for someone else when you expect nothing in return, as motivation, and you will make a change and will impact others. Nelson Mandela said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead." So please, motivate your socks all the way up and help others to do the same. Thank you.